Video được Việt hóa bởi Ngọc Tân từ group tài nguyên dựng phim. Nghiêm cấm các hành vi lít về rồi bán cho thằng khác. Mọi ý kiến đóng góp xin gửi về Facebook Quỳnh Ngọc Tân.
Okay, so now that we know a lot of the major tools in the edit page, kind of how things work, how to mess with things in the timeline, in this chapter, we're just going to work through the story and make this into a reasonable edit. Feel free to follow along with me, or maybe just watch and then try it yourself afterward. So we have all of our clips for the scene lined out here in the timeline, all on one layer. And the way that I like to edit is to edit in passes. And what that means is that you fix the great big problems first, and then you go through to the medium problems and then the small problems. And the great thing about working that way is if you run out of time or something, at least you have the great big problems fixed for the whole scene. So let's go through here and figure out the big problems. The first thing I'm looking for is just the order. So the kids walk up and we see the crash and they kind of talk with each other. These are all different angles of the same thing right here. So what we're going to have to do is mix those. And so for now, I'll just kind of stack them. I'm going to hold down Shift and roll with my mouse wheel to make my tracks a little smaller. And then I'm going to put this on the third track. We're probably not going to leave it like this, but this is kind of just a visual way of knowing that these are all happening at the same time. They shouldn't really happen one after another necessarily. Eventually, we're going to have parts of this that happen one after another, but we haven't decided the parts yet. So let's just kind of stack all of those for now. And I'll select this empty space and hit delete. So they talk, and then he moves forward to look at the craft. And then he flashes the flashlight on her. One thing that's sometimes helpful if you want to just kind of remember your place is to add a marker. You can add a marker by hitting M on the keyboard. And if you don't have anything selected, it will add it to the sequence. If you have a clip selected and you hit M, it'll add it to the clip. So it kind of depends on what you want. I actually want to add a clip marker here right when he flashes the light on her right there. And I'll hit M. The reason I'm doing that is because I know that we have a close-up of her being lit by that flashlight, and I want to kind of save my place for later. So then he walks up to the craft and starts to touch it. So this is a close-up of him walking up, so that can be kind of stacked right here. This is the little panel moving. And so maybe we'll put that right after when he touches it. Then we have her close up here where she's looking, and we have the light shining on her right there. That's what we're going to line up with this marker right here. I'm actually just going to make this shorter for now, because remember, even if we trim something back, it's not changing the file itself. It's just changing the in and out in the timeline. And so we can always bring that back if we need to. And so I'll line that up. I'll hit N on the keyboard, or you can click this little button here to enable snapping, and now it'll just snap to that marker. And now we have these sort of in sync, actually. If I move this one out of the way, move this down, you can see we have sort of an edit there, right? That works. And again, we'll kind of decide the rest of this later. Let's see what this one is. This is the wide angle. So this is kind of happening at the same time too. So let's boost these up. And now we've kind of lined these out for when they're actually happening in time. But the problem is obviously that this isn't really that interesting because we're just seeing whatever the top shot is. But we do have these sort of organized. So that's a good first pass. Next pass, biggest problems are actually fixing these kind of things. So what I like to do is start with the one shot and then see what parts I like about it. So I can select these top shots and hit D on the keyboard. And what that'll do is disable just these clips so that I can see what's under them. And let's just play this back and see what's going on. Got to turn on our audio.
Go check it out.
No way, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
All right, that all works fine. There's one problem so far is our audio is just coming out of the left ear. And the reason for that is because our audio track here, this is a mono track. That means that it only has one channel. And we're putting this into a stereo track, which expects two channels. And when you do that, it just comes out of the left channel. So to fix that, we can go over here to the first part of our audio track here, and I can right click anywhere where it's empty. And we're going to change track type to mono. And this little number goes from 2 to 1. And now when we play this back,
Go check it out.
it comes out of both ears. Okay, so one thing is we have the mic dipping into the shot, so it would be pretty convenient to cover that up. So why don't we just do this? I'm going to select this and split it with Control \, and then move out, and we'll select this again and split it again with Control \. And then this right here, this clip is something that I want to cover. And so I'm just going to hit backspace on the keyboard. I won't hit delete because it will move everything down like that. All I really want to happen is just for this to go away so that I know not to use it. And now we have the first part of this that works fine.
Go check it out.
No way, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Great. So what parts of this shot do we really like? I really like the beginning of it. I think it's great.
Check it out.
When he pushes her, it would be great to cut to her reaction. So let's see if we have a shot of her. I'll hit D to enable. This is his angle. And we'll select this other one. This is her angle. So again, I can just select whichever tracks I don't want.
Go check it.
And I can look at the waveform here. And this is going to be bigger when there's actually sound. And so looking at the waveform is actually a really great way to figure out when things happen that you are looking for. So I know that she's going to start talking right about here. And the rest of it is just kind of visual.
No, you go check it out.
Great. So that works pretty well. Again, I'll hit Control \ to just grab this little piece.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it.
And I really like her reaction there too.
No.
So I'm just going to get rid of the first part of this. And now we're going to start actually putting these in sequence. So I'll enable this by hitting D. And let's see how we're doing here. Let's see, let's just take this and move it down a little bit.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Now it would be nice to cut to his reaction. So we'll grab his reaction here.
Fine.
No.
And we'll just disable the other stuff.
No, you go check it out.
Right there is after her line, so
No,
we'll
check it out.
just trim that up here, and we'll put that. And you can't quite see it, but this is also linking to the audio, so the audio is moving along with it. That's the nice thing about having it synced in the clip.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
All right, so the shot isn't great after about here.
Okay.
So he starts to move forward, and we'll just cut right there.
Oh, you go check it out.
Fine.
See, that works really well. I like that a lot. So let's see what else we have here. We have her reaction, which might be great to cut back to.
Check it out.
Let's see if we have anything else here. I'll just disable this for a second.
I'll go check it out.
Might be really nice as he kind of crosses over to show that. We'll see. That's the great thing is we can always choose to use or not use something at any point. So I'll just kind of put this off to the side for a minute. And let's re-enable our bottom track here.
Go check it out.
Fine. Okay. I'll go check it out.
Check it out. No way, you go check it out.
And I do like when she pushes him, so maybe we can actually cut.
You go check it out. No way, you check it out.
I like when she pushes him, so maybe.
Check it out. No, you go check it out.
And right as she pushes him, let's go ahead and cut to the other shot. The reason we're doing that right as she pushes him is when you have a character that is performing an action, it kind of helps the shots flow together if you cut right in the middle of that action. So right as she's pushing him, it kind of leads from one shot to the other visually. Maybe we want to trim this up just a little bit. I'll hit N to disable snapping, and we'll just push this over. It kind of looks like she's pushing him twice, and so let's cut back in here. And maybe we want a little bit more of this shot. Yeah, so she's kind of pushing him through those shots. Let's listen to it with the audio.
Oh, you go check it out.
Ooh, so here's a problem. We want this video to cut right here, but we want the audio to keep going because it's cutting off her line. The great news is that we don't always have to have the audio and the video cut at the same time. In fact, a lot of the time, it's best not to. And that's actually for the same reason as cutting on this action, because if we have the audio cut at a different time than the video, it kind of makes the whole thing flow together a little better. So right now, if I were to grab the edge of this video and move it back and forth, you see it moves both the audio and the video track. But I can unlink these in a couple different ways. The easiest way is just to go up here next to my snapping icon, and this middle one is called linked selection. If you disable linked selection and then click off of everything, then if I grab the video, I can move that independently of my audio. And same thing, if I grab the audio, I can move this out so that her line is finished. So now let's take a look at that.
You go check it out. Oh, you go check it out.
And I'd say that works all right. So she's pushing him forward. I'm going to go ahead and recheck our link selection so I don't forget to and mess something up later. And let's enable this clip again. And this is his reaction. So she pushes him, and then we're going to cut right as he turns right there. Again, because we're cutting on the action, right? And I'll just select this and hit M for marker. That's when he turns. And let's see if we can grab right when he turns here.
Fine.
No, you go check it out.
Fine.
All right, so right when he does that kind of double take thing,
I check it out.
right as he looks this way and he's looking back, right when his face is blurry, we're going to take that like that and see how that goes. And we'll just roll this back up.
You go check it out.
Fine. Okay.
Okay, so this sort of works, except for he's a lot closer to her in this shot than he is in this shot. He's like 2 feet in front of her here. And it still sort of worked. That's the magic of cutting on action, is because even though this doesn't really make sense, he's like a lot farther away from her here, and then here he's a lot closer. He's still completing the same action that he was right here. And so it still sort of works.
Fine. Fine.
Okay.
Out.
Fine. Okay.
So it kind of depends on how you want to do this. That's the great thing, is the way that you edit something is going to be a lot different than the way I edit something. In fact, we have a finished rough cut here. If we go up to the media pool and go to chapters, under edit page, there's one called edit page finished. And this is one that was edited by our editor, Dan. And this is going to be a lot different than the one that I edit. And that's really okay. It's not like there's a wrong way to edit something. A lot of it is personal preference. Let's take a look at how this one looks. Let's go ahead and unlock our track. Right click and change track type to mono. Let's see how this looks.
Whoa.
See that?
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay.
So this works too. It doesn't really cut on action, but it still works because they're kind of just standing there looking at it. And if there isn't any action, you can kind of cut whenever you want. And I'm sure that this was reworked a few times to solve the problems like we have here. Like him turning, but being 3 feet in front of where he was.
Fine.
But for now, this works okay. Again, we're trying to keep kind of big picture stuff with this rough edit. So we have this other shot of her, which we may or may not use. I'll put this up here and just hit D. And let's see if we can just go to the next shot. That's him walking forward. So let's go ahead and start with this one. And we can kind of do this a different way too. I have these stacked just so that I know about them, but I think just for ease, we'll just spread them out so I don't have to disable and enable the clips every time.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay.
All right, so now he's kind of walking forward. And we'll just trim this up to right here. And as he walks forward from this, that's what's going to bridge these two shots.
Okay.
So as he kind of starts to walk forward, we're going to have him continue that motion from left to right on this shot into that shot. And again, that doesn't really make sense because he's right by her here and he's, 4 feet, 5 feet in front of her here, but it still kind of works because he's moving from left to right.
Check it out.
And you almost don't notice. All right, so let's just let him do the whole action here. This will be what we call a master shot. The master shot is pretty much just everything that's happening in the scene, but from a wide angle so you can kind of see everything. It's sort of like your anchor. If you need to make something more clear or show the audience where a character is, you can always go back to your master shot if you shoot it right. Boom, and then he touches it, and that's going to be the end of the sequence. And so we have this close-up of him doing this, and actually we don't even have him shining the light on her here. That's something we added later. And so right here, we know we're probably going to have him shine his light, and we'll just cut this here like this. And then we'll put this kind of in between. So right here, when he goes like that, we'll drag this in between. Really cool keyboard shortcut if you want to kind of put something in between a couple other clips. While you're dragging it, if it's on the same line, if you hit Control Shift, it will kind of push things around if you want to put this in between a couple clips. So we'll do it that way. And let's just see how this plays butted up against each other. And again, when he steps forward, right, we can cut that to where he steps forward right here. So now he steps forward like that. That would totally work. And it's really cool because we can change how the story works here. We can make it so he gets nervous and then shines the light on her. Or we can have something like move and then he gets nervous and shine the light on her. We have a lot of freedom here. Either way, when he shines that light towards her like that, we're going to cut on that action with the light sweeping across the frame. We're going to cut right there. Again, I'm just hitting Control / to split this clip. I could also just make a marker, I guess. And now we're going to take this shot of the light hitting her face. And we're actually going to roll this back to where the light starts to hit her face like that. This is like happening twice. Here we go. See, now our brain kind of follows the fact that he's looking back there and he's going to sweep the light towards her. And as he sweeps it, it shows up on her face. Just like that. And then we have her kind of freaking out there. And we don't want to show the rest of that, her laughing. So we'll just leave it with her bright. Oh, it's always funny. And at some point, we're going to want to split this as he kind of brings the light back this way. So I don't know, maybe something like that. And we can take all of this and just drag this down here. Get rid of this one. So now we have this sequence where lights are up. And it's kind of understood how he swings the light back this way. And this is another point with editing is you don't actually have to show every single thing that happens. You can kind of let the audience assume what happened. Even though we don't see the light go from her face all the way down to here at any point, either on this shot or this other shot, it still works because we kind of assume that he took the light away. And it still sort of works, even if it's maybe not as smooth. Okay, then we have this other big shot that has the spaceship in the foreground. And here we see him get startled. And so we might actually want to use that where he gets startled. There we go. And that's going to be the same action as in the other clips here. And then she's all done, and then he swings it back. Great. Good. I like that. So we could also, I'll just bring these down to this second track and bring this up a track. We have this first half where he kind of gets startled. And that's going to go right before he swings the light. Which could go just right here. We could just overwrite it like that. So we can have him get startled here and then cut to the close-up. Like that. And then we'll just let that be a little bit shorter. And then we could go to right here where he starts to take the light away. And we could have that happen right after that. Like I said, there's like a million different ways that we could edit even just this one scene with a few different shots. Let's go ahead and bring this down. We'll bring these other ones up over it. Because at some point, we can actually continue this action here where he's flipping this light this way. Just like that. And I think this shot isn't as great because it doesn't show as much emotion. This is kind of supposed to be a really tense moment. And this one's definitely a lot more tense. So we're just going to use this. And let's compress the time a little bit here. Let's cut out kind of this middle and see if that works. It sort of works. And every once in a while, there's just something where you can't really help, you know, like this kind of shot doesn't really look exactly like this shot. It's similar, but he's hunched down a lot more here, and he's kind of standing up in this shot. A lot of the time, the audience won't notice, but, you know, it's technically not the best. But we could do something like that. We also have one more shot of this thing moving a little bit.
Go.
Which might be really good to put that right before he gets startled.
Go.
So that we know what actually startled him, because in this kind of wide shot, he gets startled, but we don't really notice it. So we can take this like this, right before he gets startled.
Go.
And let's get rid of the audio here. We don't need to hear that go. So again, I could hit link selection, or I could also just hold down Alt and select just the audio track, and then I can move that independently of the video track. I'll hold Alt and click that and just hit backspace to get rid of it. So we have just this little movement here. And maybe we need a little bit more breathing room right here. I want to move everything down, and so I can go to my trim mode right here and grab the edge of this and just trim this down a little bit like this. And we'll just pause right there. And that works pretty well. So now we aren't cutting back and forth so quickly. So now we're at a point where the story makes sense, at least. We don't need that extra clip. And at least it's very clear what's happening, right? Which is always a really good starting point. So they're walking up to the craft.
Whoa.
We can probably cut this a little earlier.
Whoa.
And we could probably cut into this one a little later.
Whoa.
There is the craft. That's awesome. And they look at it, and we've looked at it for plenty of time, so I'm going to trim that also.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. All right, check it out.
All right. So all of the actions work. It might not be the very best way to cut it, but we at least know what's going on here. This right here, we might want to cut this a little earlier because he has the flashlight up here, and he has the flashlight up here. That might just work a little better. I can even roll this edit back and forth by mousing over the very middle of this edit. And I have those two brackets, and I can trim both of these clips at the same time. And so I can make this cut just happen earlier in time, which might be good for what we're doing here. That works pretty well. Now, when we have something like this, where we have this edit that just doesn't work very well, it sort of works, but it's kind of weird. That's a nice time to cut to something totally different, where we might be able to cut to Gwen's angle right here, which we might have. This isn't really the best angle for her because we're kind of sort of on the wrong side of her. And so we might be able to take something like this. I'm just going to hold down Alt and drag this over to copy it. And then we can see what else we have. We have her worried, but she's not in focus there. So we might not have an angle of her, but what would be really good is if we had her angle kind of looking on, being scared. Ooh, actually, we might have it here. Let's go ahead and go back to our media pool. And we can bring up our thumbnails here. This is the one I'm looking for right here, clip 13. I don't know where that went. But boy, this is the perfect one. So let's double click on that and we'll just get someplace where she's...
What was that?
Looking a little bit worried. I like that line, what was that? So let's bring that down, close our media pool. And this is going to bridge these two shots a little better. So right there, she can say, what was that?
What was that?
Like this. And we'll put that. That's not that great of a cut either, so that totally works. Let's do another way to kind of insert this. If we grab this and hit Control X, that's going to cut this. So it's going to copy it, but it's also going to delete the original. And then we can park our playhead somewhere and hit Control Shift V. And what that will do is paste this, but it'll also insert it. It'll move everything else down. So now we have this shot in between those other shots.
What was that?
So now we have...
What was that?
Yeah, that works great. Now he goes back, and to cover this awkward cut right here, we're going to cut back to her, being a little bit worried. We'll just take a little bit later in this take. So maybe when she rises up like that.
Something move?
But we also do see her kind of looking over this way. And so I wonder if we have something where she kind of looks the other, or she leans the other way. Let's just take a look. There we go. There's one. That works. Let's put this here. And now we actually don't see her, so it doesn't really matter. But if we do want to see her, that kind of works because she's kind of tilted to the right here. She's tilted to the right there. Let's just have a little bit. There we go. And that bridges that cut between this shot and this shot that don't really match up. We kind of forget about it when we look at her other shot. There we go. Cool. And when we're done, it's totally okay to take all of these and just collapse them down to one track. I feel like it's cleaner that way. You don't have to. There's nothing wrong with leaving it like this. But what I like to do is select the video tracks and hold Alt. And I can hit up or down on the keyboard, and that will move these up or down different tracks. So I can hit down, and then all of these, I can hit Alt, down, like that. And so now that puts everything on one track. The only thing that you want to pay attention to when you do that is that that will overwrite the audio. And so if you're unsure if you want to do that, you can either hold Alt while you select them, or you can go to link selection and uncheck link selection, then hold down Alt and hit down on the keyboard. And so now we have all the video on one track and the audio isn't overwriting anything.
Check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine.
So now we have the scene roughly edited for the story. It's really clear what's going on. We might change it around a little bit later. The audio doesn't flow super well. It's just kind of the audio that we recorded on set, but the story is there, and that's what we're really looking for. Let's watch the cut we just made.
Whoa.
Go check it out.
No, you go check it out.
Fine. Okay. Check it out.
What was that?
Yeah, that works really well. So again, it's all about clarity of the story. So take some time and make your own cut, play around with the shots. That's why we have them in this training, so you can have a good time editing this scene.